And now back to one of our top stories of today, the nomination of John Coale as the U.S. Special Envoy to Belarus with the aim of securing the release of additional political prisoners held by the regime of Alexander Lukashenko. But everything comes at a price, and so to discuss how this appointment will affect the U.S.-Belarus dynamics and the possible outcomes, I'm joined by my tonight's guest, Franak Viačorka, Chief Advisor to Svetlana Tsikhanouskaya. Good evening, and thank you for joining me on the program.
Good evening. Good evening.
So as we're looking at John Coale, who currently, now former Deputy Special Envoy to Ukraine and former personal lawyer to Donald Trump, he assisted already in September a release of a number of prisoners. Why do you think that President Trump actually made that decision to have that special envoy? Is this a sign of a relationship between Washington and Minsk getting better? What are we to expect from this apart from the exchange of prisoners?
So it shows primarily that Belarus remains on the agenda of President Donald Trump. John Coale is working on Belarusian political prisoners since February. We were advocating for a long time to have the special appointee for Belarus. After 2021, when Julie Davis was ambassador and special envoy for Belarus, we didn't have anyone. And right now there will be John Coale. And we worked with him thoroughly in last months to make sure people are being released. He works purely on humanitarian track. His goal is to negotiate with Lukashenko, and Lukashenko is a very tough negotiator. And I'm sure that John Coale will manage to release many political prisoners, including Andrzej Poczobut, Polish Belarusian journalist. So this is the goal. We are happy with this appointment, and we are wishing him best luck.
So would you say that this appointment of this particular person, when it comes to that very important cause, is actually putting Belarus in Washington's orbit, in Washington's spotlight yet again?
Indeed, absolutely, because there are no many envoys by Donald Trump right now. There is one on Ukraine, Kellogg. There is Vitkov, who is working on Russian-Ukrainian negotiation. There is an envoy on Middle East, who is working on the Israel-Gaza conflict. Now there will be one on Belarus, which means that Donald Trump will put his personal attention to Belarus, and which means that there will be special policy on Belarus. It must not mean there will be like softening of relationship with Belarus. It doesn't mean that there will be back business to as usual with Lukashenko, but hopefully there will be more releases of political prisoners. So this is our expectation from this nomination. And this is what John Coale a few months ago told Svetlana Tsikhanouskaya personally, that he is working on saving people's lives, and we fully support it.
So also, when we look at this appointment, do you think it's more about having an independent line of contact with Lukashenko's regime in Minsk, or is it also about establishing a better communication and opening a new front when it comes to communications with Vladimir Putin?
There is such version that Lukashenko might serve as the communicator, postman to Putin, but I doubt this theory because Americans, they have enough contacts, enough lines of communication with Moscow, and it seems there are no much progresses in peace deal, in negotiations with Russia itself. So I don't think John Coale will be working on Russia. I think his focus will be purely Belarusian, how to release people, how to stop repression, how to bring democratic changes in Belarus, because release of political prisoners is just the first step. And the very fact that there is one person dedicated by President Trump to work on Belarus helps us, democratic forces of Belarus, to deliver our messages to Washington. And I hope that we will manage to convince Donald Trump to work closely on Belarus and to bring systemic changes in Belarus, not just to release people, but to bring Belarus to free and fair elections. That was our demand in 2020. It remains the demand of Belarusian people.
Obviously, the cause of Belarus, the situation currently taking place in Belarus is incredibly important to us here in Poland. We've covered the subject extensively, and actually one of my friends, Diana Skaya, had a lovely opportunity to speak to Sergei and Svetlana right after his release. What role do you think that Poland is going to play in that exchange between Minsk and Washington, as Poland clearly has its own skin in the game?
Poland will play a key role, and I'm sure that Washington will consult with Poland on basically every move regarding Belarus, because Poland, Lithuania, Latvia, and Ukraine, of course, are direct neighbors of Belarus, and they face the biggest threats from Lukashenko's regime. And regarding sanctions, regarding releasing people, regarding hybrid threats coming from Minsk and Moscow, I'm sure that Washington will be consulting with Poland. And let's not forget, there are many Polish citizens in Belarusian prisons, many hostages taken by Lukashenko's regime, including Andrzej Poczobut, including clergy, including priests, and Americans can help to release them. And I must commend Prime Minister Tusk and Minister Sikorsky, who are always keeping high on American and international agenda as well, the topic of Belarusian and Polish political prisoners taken by Lukashenko's regime.
Obviously, when it comes to the exchange or return of the prisoners, there's always a price tag on it. What do you think is going to be the price that the U.S. will have to pay for having another 50 prisoners being released from the regime?
It's a good question. I would separate, the question of sanctions and question of releasing political prisoners. Of course, it should be one step made by Minsk regime and one step towards regime, as it usually happens during the negotiations and during exchanges. But I think the most important is pressure. If we want to convince and force Lukashenko to release people, we must put maximum pressure, maximum sanctions. Without pressure and sanctions, Lukashenko will release no one from prisons. Americans, they just negotiate. If you, Lukashenko, don't want new sanctions, or if you want these sanctions relaxed, you have to release this number of people, these journalists, these activists from your jails. So I think the discussion about sanctions will be key here, and it's very important to distinguish two types of sanctions. There are sanctions imposed for the war, and they cannot be relaxed because the war is continuing, and Lukashenko helps Russia in this war. And there are sanctions imposed for human rights violations. And these sanctions potentially can be softened in case if people are released and repression stop.
Franak, just one more question before we go really quickly as our time is coming to an end. Do you think we're going to see Andrzej Poczobut walk free anytime soon?
I think it's possible, and we have to work together to fight together for his release, because he is our common hero.
Thank you very much. Franak Viačorka, Chief Advisor to Svetlana Tikhanovskaya, was my guest. Thank you for joining me on the program.
Thank you.
And so this would be all for now here on World News Tonight. I'm Klaudia Czerwińska. Thank you for joining me, and I hope to see you back here on TVP World for more in just a moment.